Hi, we're three of the members of GoGo Kimono, and we're here today to discuss the great latest TV phenomenon that is Sherlock, which has been on the BBC over the last 3 weeks, and give our feedback on the show. So with me today is
Chelsea.
Andy.
and I'm Rich. So, who would like to begin?
I think Andy. Andy has a lot of opinions.
I do have a lot of opinions as ever. Personally for me, I didn't think it was as good as the previous seasons. But I thought very specifically the reason for that is that every episode was trying to be special in some way, and there was no episode that was just regular, straightforward, them solving a case, and I thought that was the big part of the issue there. Should also point out that we're trying to avoid spoilers here because I know Chelsea hasn't seen the last episode. I don't know about Rich, have you seen?
I've seen all three.
I know a lot of you out there haven't seen the last episode probably yet, so we're going to avoid talking too much about the last episode. Focus on the first two, but did feel in all of them were trying to be special in some way, and there were none of them just like, oh, I got a case, and then I did the case. And
So what do you mean exactly by trying to be special? Like they're trying to be one-off features in themselves?
well, no, I mean it's always kind of done that. I think the problem was more that almost the opposite, in fact, in that the first episode, you've got to explain how Sherlock's not dead. So obviously that's going to take up a large part of the running time, and the repercussions of that. You know, it's not going to be a classic episode because they've got a lot of crap to get out of the way. Second episode should have just been, oh, we've got a case. But it wasn't. It was John's wedding, so there wasn't really...
I thought that was uber cute, and I thought it was really nice to see cheesily different sides to the characters. I mean, that's because I'm a pansy and I like all that shit. But
I agree. I don't think it's a problem in terms of itself. I think it's a problem when you have... What you ended up having was 3 stories that all related into each other that didn't stand by themselves and weren't just standalone stories. And we're all trying to be like bigger than the whole. And
there was an overarching story arc over the whole of the 3 episodes, which is something they didn't necessarily do as much in the first two series. But I don't know about like you guys, if you've read any of the books or read the stories.
Long time ago.
One of the things that I've always loved about them, I've got a lot of them on my iPhone because I'm cool like that. But basically, the amazing thing that they've always managed to do is being able to update essentially what were older stories. So obviously the idea with the last episode, they've basically taken the story which was of Charles Augustus Milverton originally in the books written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and basically changed it to fit into a modern setting. So they've obviously changed one of the villain's name, but essentially it's the same character. Essentially, a lot of the touchstones of that story have been replicated in that story, and a lot of the swerves of it. For example, there's the bit, there's a bit where they go up to confront the main foe in the episode. They go up to his office. Now, there's a twist there that happens at the end. For those that have seen it, obviously you understand what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, then obviously I recommend going to watch the episode because it is a really good episode. But basically, it pulls a swerve where you think that it's going to go in the direction of the book, but it actually doesn't. So in a way, they've managed to create this hybrid of actual old stories using the old canon of stories, but at the same time being able to freshen them up and update them a little bit.
And that's really hard to do, like to follow the kind of format of a story that is, you know, world famous and adored, and to make that into something which is new and fresh, and also to add your own thing. That's really, really brave.
And I think not just to do that, but also to make it so integral. So the story. I mean, like, you know, they had a bit less of it in this series, but the first 2 series, it was constantly text messages flashing up on screen, which is such a, you know, kind of ultra modern, but at the same time actually relates back to them getting telegrams all the time in the original books. It's kind of an updated version. It's really nicely done.
Things like the second episode, although I really enjoyed it, it was more of a sort of departure. It was more like relocating Sherlock Holmes out of the general context that you normally find him, where it is very much a story arc. But I mean,
and this is what I thought was problematic, is that, you know, like when you've got the first episode's compromised because you've got so much explained from the last series. Then you've got the third episode, it's all that climax to this build up, and instead I didn't buy the twist, and that's a big problem with the third episode. But the second episode, that was the point where you really just needed to have a straightforward story. I think my thinking was, I think it would have been better off if they'd had the wedding in the first episode. If Sherlock Holmes had turned up at the wedding, that could have been really interesting. Then you could have had a normal second story, but we're having like compromised first story, compromised second story because it's a wedding, and then the third story I just didn't by the big twist, then you've got ultimately a disappointing season, I think.
But what they've, I think, effectively managed to do, and this is quite clever, is that, for example, a lot of the stories that they discuss, even in like the second episode, where he's talking about cases that they've solved at the wedding, again, they're referring back to other cases that are in the canon of Tony Doyle's work,
which is still really
which is really clever, because they're just little glances and the things that, like, if you haven't read the books before, and if you haven't, I suggest you go and read them, because they are really, really good. What's always been really good about Sherlock Holmes is, Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat, I think it was who's the other writer, they basically are clearly passionate about Sherlock Holmes and want to create a character that is relocating that character in the modern day, and still, I think it's a testament to the two characters, but that, you still feel, irrespective of how the plots went, that these are strong characters, and you kind of enjoy spending time with them as they go through their sort of as they try and solve cases, and obviously go through the motions.
I think on that point as well, it's very worthwhile pointing out. I'm trying to speak in code here because the third episode,
When the thing happened,
the introduction of Sherlock in the third episode of this series. When you think about how namby-pamby they were in the first series, of like, oh, he's wearing a nicotine patch, because he's still kind of like Sherlock Holmes, but it's the 21st century, to where they've taken him in this series, that's really impressive and really admirable in the terms of like, okay, we're going for this full throttle now, and that's really good.
And that's made him more. That's given him a more human side, because before it was like, okay, so now he's given him something. Now he's given him all these sort of vices. But like in the third episode, you definitely felt like, okay, they've sort of referenced it briefly, but it's like now he's got over that. But the fact that he is basically a functioning sociopath is one line that he continually says over the course of the third episode. In fact, all the episodes really. The fact that that he has all these flaws, it creates more of a human side to him, which I think perhaps maybe had been a little bit lacking in sort of the earlier episodes, although he'd been sort of very kind of emotional at times. But
my favourite line in the whole series was at the wedding, where the bridesmaid said to him, "I wish you weren't whatever it is you are," and he turned to him and went, "Yes, I know." I think that was beautifully ambiguous, because it really felt like it was like, it wasn't just "Yes, I know you do." It was, yes, I know, actually part of wishes I do too, maybe for the first time.
So to round up, we like it, but there's points we change.
I like the series. I didn't like this series. And I think they need to go back to doing just individual episodes.
Well, let's wait and see what the rest of the series holds, huh?
That's it.
Yeah. No, that's the third episode. But I think the third series, obviously, there's glimpses of potential storylines that are going to be reintroduced in the next series, the fourth series, which hopefully will be interesting. But there are certainly stories that I still am eager to see them touch upon from the old stories that have been made.
That's definitely good. Definitely one of the best shows on TV. Watch it.
Oh, there we are. There's that overrunning review. It's definitely good.
Rich and Andy say 2 thumbs up.
Fabulous.